Pretty good. Very excited to cast some Fight Night. Always fantastic players and very skilled too. So it's gonna be a great night.
Yeah, it's going to be a fantastic night. For those who are unfamiliar with Team Gravity Fight Night, Team Gravity Fight Night is a event that happens every single week. You guys can catch three amazing show matches with a total prize pool of $100 across the entire event. And this week we have some pretty awesome matches lined up. And Jarnock, can you elaborate just who we're going to be casting today?
Well, the first match we're gonna get into, which is gonna be a best of five, will be versus or the two players in it at least will be the American Moose Skills and then versus South Korean Mamory. So both players that have been around the block for a little while, and I'm really excited to see this first matchup. I've casted Mamory only in ZVT though, and then as you mentioned just beforehand, you've casted a lot of Moose Skills. As a matter of fact, he was actually on Breakout Invitational, which is a series you host.
Yeah, Muskos is a very, very strong Zerg player, but here's the thing. Actually, I'm glad that you brought up the Breakout Invitational because he actually ended up losing the most recent Breakout Invitational a few months ago, so he's had some time to improve, but he lost it in a ZVZ, the exact matchup he's going to be playing today, and he lost it very convincingly. He had really struggled versus the Team Ascension player BioIce when he went for this very, very heavy Muta style. No matter whatever Moose Skills tried to do, he really struggled to deal with that Muta style. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily as much saying that Moose Skills struggles versus Muta play, as much as it is BioIce was just really good at Mutal's play, but still, there's some room over there. When you take a loss, like a big 4-0 loss or something in the grand finals of a tournament in a ZVZ, and your opponent does the exact same build over and over again, that's something that's something that sinks into you. You remember
Oh yeah,
that. You want to
definitely.
go figure out how to deal with that in the future.
Yeah, and BioIce is definitely a very strong opponent, but that is only match one of tonight, which is Moose Gills versus Mamory. And then the other two,
I
the
think
first
we
one,
will. Yeah, I think that's
no?
the second match for tonight. Correct. We're going to
Oh,
be
is Moose
starting with
Gills versus Mamory the second one? I thought it was the
yes, the
first one.
second one. Second one, I
Oh, it's
believe.
first, second one actually. So I am
Yeah.
completely wrong right there. But actually, it looks like the first one is going to be Spain versus Mexico, WaKa versus JimRising.
Yeah, I almost instinctively want to say, Latin American players, but of course Spain not exactly Latin America, but it's like
Wow.
a good old reunion of, that's actually pretty funny because both of the players right now, they're doing their map vetoes, they're getting everything set up, and they're of course speaking in Spanish, so
Yeah.
can't really follow much of what's going on, but it's still pretty fun to see.
Oh wait, I may actually be able to. It's kind of funny because I was asking Jim Rising if I could interview him, and I was like, just it'll probably be in English because I don't understand any Spanish StarCraft terms. But I was really confident. I was like, okay, let's see. Come on, Drenok, do you have the Spanish skills to actually be able to pull this off? But I didn't, so never mind that. But that will be the first one, Walker versus Jim Rising. Then, as I mentioned before incorrectly, it will be Moose Skills versus Mamory, and then. The big match for tonight, even though those two are quite big, we're going to have two fantastic South Korean players who have both, won multiple Dream Hacks and done a lot of Asus ROG. I'm never sure what, ORG. I'm never sure what Asus thing stands for, but they've both won many tournaments and are very skilled.
Yeah, it's going to be the amazing, amazing Team Liquid's Hero facing off versus Team Liquid's Taja. And I'm especially excited for this one, Jarnock, because we have not had an opportunity as the foreign scene to see much of these players unless you have the gumption to stay up until 2 or 4 in the
Yeah,
morning
definitely.
to watch the GSL, the SSL, or more recently, I guess, Kespa Cup. But even then, we didn't get to see that much of them. It's especially been a really, really difficult task to try and see a lot of Taja recently. This is going to be a really enlightening kind of series. It's going to be a best of 7 with these two players we don't get to see much of, and we get to see what their shape is. And that is the thing that I am looking forward to the most today.
Yeah, it's definitely you're pitting two mighty warlords against each other, and it's gonna be amazing. Now, the winner of that best of 7 will walk away with 60, and the loser will walk away with 20. Now, it's not that much, but just the fact that they've been invited, they're put in the hot seat, the big matches for tonight. They already will walk away with at least $20. So even though it's not a lot of compensation, they're both feeling pretty good. But it's really gonna be a fight. It's gonna be a very hard duel between the two to see who's actually gonna be able to take 4 matches or 4 games in this best of 7 to take the win.
Hmm. Exactly, and we're pretty excited to get started with all of this, but we do want to remind everyone that since you guys are tuning in for Team Gravity Fight Night, first of all, we want to give a huge thank you to all the people that make Team Gravity Fight Night possible. There are, of course, our sponsors, and the most obvious sponsor is probably going to be one that most people are already going to have noticed by now. It's Hitbox. All the broadcasts for Team Gravity Fight Night are hosted on hitbox.tv. So if you guys do want to go ahead and register an account, you could check it out. If you're watching this on Team Liquid itself through the embed, go ahead and click on through to Hitbox. It has some pretty cool features. You might kind of surprise yourselves to how awesome it is to have a chat where you can post GIFs that actually show up in the chat. You
Oh yeah, it's
post
really
a link
cool.
and exactly, it's not like posting a link and then someone has to click the link and then see the GIF and then close the browser that opened up to open up the GIF. No, it's right there in the chat and you get to appreciate it. All kinds of other awesome stuff that happens, including if you decide to subscribe to Team Gravity Fight Night on Hitbox. But go ahead and register for an account on Hitbox, and you can even follow the channel and get information about when Team Gravity Fight Night goes live.
Yeah, there's a lot of nice little perks of doing it on Hitbox. And then, as Fear Dragon mentioned, please follow them on Hitbox, make that account, and as he also said, if you're on Team Liquid, please come over so we can have those lovely viewers and just have as much support as we can for these fantastic players and some really good games. And also, like you were just saying, the people who make this possible, not only is that Hitbox, but also Spawning Tools, a fantastic sponsor of Team Gravity, and really makes a lot of this possible.
Yeah, Spawning Tool is a really, really great tool, and all of the replays and all the statistics for the replays. If you want to learn exactly, like we were just talking about how excited we are to see Taja versus Hero and see what kind of shape they're in. Well, don't take our word for it and what we're going to say about the series. Go check out all the replays on Spawning Tool when they actually come out, and you can see all the statistics, you can see like numerical analysis of how in shape Hero and Taja are, what kind of builds they're going for, that kind of stuff. Like, this is like hard mathematics. You don't have to rely on us to tell you how awesome they are, or whether or not they are still awesome. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that Spawning Tool can provide you. And I want to encourage people, if you aren't already, first of all, go ahead and just Google Spawning Tool. It'll come up as a first result. But second result, you should be able to go follow them on Twitter. It's at Spawning Tool. It's not a hard thing to remember. Just spell out Spawning Pool and change the P to a T.
I never quite thought of that, but I guess that is correct. I was trying to think of it, and you can get the replays and get all that information, and even if you want to, you could just watch you can watch Dreadnoks, or sorry, not Dreadnok. What am I talking about? You can watch Fear Dragon and I's views when we're just like staring at the rocks, whatever. Like, whoa, look at that! I can't remember the names of the deer or whatever they are. Whatever the name of the animals are, and you can watch everything going on and have a first-person view of fantastic games. Now, the first game tonight in the first match is going to be on Terraform, JimRising versus WaKa. Now, this is going to be a ZVZ, and it's on Terraform, so this is a really cool map just positionally wise. You can do a lot of cool stuff with quick ground-based army units. But do you have any thoughts on Terraform, Fear Dragon, not only in ZVZ, but just as an overall currently in the new ladder map pool?
Well, Terraform is one of those maps, if you can't remember, or, it's one of the more recent maps, as you said, so maybe people haven't quite ingrained the image of it into their mind. It's a very circular map, and that means that there's multiple attack paths, and whenever there are multiple attack paths or multiple ways you can run around, that's really going to favor a lot of the more mobile units that can, say, like Zergling Muta styles, might be a little bit stronger on this map, because first of all, the Zergling is going to have great opportunities to walk around the army as they're moving out across the map. Do counter harassment. Mutalisk going to be able to walk straight over those cliffs, right? You can really exploit mobility on these kind of maps. So those are the kinds of things that I'm maybe anticipating to see a little bit more of in ZVZ. But honestly, I would say that Muta styles have not exactly... I couldn't even explain to you exactly why it's happened. It just sort of seems like a meta shift. But I've been seeing a lot less Mutalisk plays in ZVZ. So I'm kind of anticipating Roach Hydra, even though I think it would be cool to see some of the players today experiment a little bit more with some of those later game Mutalisk plays.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of really cool things you can do on Terraform. As you mentioned with Mutalisks, you can just simply get out of the way of anything trying to attack your Mutalisks. If they're low on health, if you're trying to retreat out of it, there's so many cliffs, so many easily things that you can just jump over as the Mutas, fly over even actually is probably more correct. And the things cannot follow you. There's lots of really cool things that can happen on this map, especially because not necessarily going back to Brood War, but it's a couple of the new maps in the map pool, like Bridgehead, like Terraform. There's just a lot of little movements you can do that really change the game quite bigly, and you can get nice positions on different things.
Yeah, definitely. But we are going to be jumping into the game. Drenok, go ahead and take it away. Tell us, who are we going to be watching in this particular game?
Well, on Terraform, if I can get to the right viewer, thank you. There we go, Hawkeye. How beautiful. On Terraform, in the bottom right-hand corner, we have the blue Zerg player from Team Gravity. That is the people hosting this, the lovely people. That is the one, the only, WaKa. Also hails from Spain, so works out well.
And his opponent, spawning up in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the red Zerg player representing Team Brawl Esports and Mexico. It is JimRising. And JimRising, pretty cool player. He has a reputation for being pretty aggressive, though. I'm not going to lie to you, man. He has a reputation of being very, very aggressive. And I don't want to say all-in-y, but he has been known to all-in from time to time in ZVZ.
Yeah, definitely. At first, it was kind of funny because I messaged him saying, "Oh, could I talk to you, ask you some questions?" And I was like, "Oh wait, not the Chinese player. My bad. Whoa, my bad. Not Jim." For some reason in my head, for a very long time, I actually told him this. I thought they were the same person. Like, I swear, I thought they were the same person. I was like, "Dang, this guy's good at Protoss." I know. It was like, "Dang, this guy is very, very good." But for now,
of course, Drenok, yeah. I mean, of course, Drenok, we know that, like, a Chinese player, you know, who's, like, super high level, one of the best Protoss players in the entire Chinese scene, that means that you can off-race and be GM at a North American level. Hew, hew, hew.
Oh, of course. Oh, no, you're
That's completely
correct. Yeah. the number one GMNA is, like, a gold on Korea. It's pretty, it's
I think that's what I've heard, yeah.
That's pretty much what I've heard.
All jokes aside, though, we do see some of the openings already picking up over here with earlier Gas Geyser, very early Gas Geyser coming out from JimRising. Honestly, JimRising just playing this out fairly greedy early on. I think that was a hash gas pool, so really delaying that spawning pool and saying, you know what, I don't think that my opponent's going to be heavily aggressive. And look at this, WaKa not taking either of his Gas Geysers. He's almost maybe looking to go for a gasless style at this point.
Yeah, it's really started to pan off well for JimRising, as you were mentioning, being a little bit greedy, and then his opponent WaKa not punishing it at all. And one thing to point out on this map is because of the circular way the map is, there's almost 5 attack paths, different attack paths going across this map. Even if there was early lings, your overlords have a decent chance of never spotting them coming across the map. So it was a bit of a gamble for JimRising, but that early gas, as you mentioned before, is going to be indicative of some aggression, and as you were saying, JimRising loves that aggression.
Yep. Well, for now, we're not going to be seeing too much going on over here. We're just going to be waiting for this whole game to pan out. But when you do go for the gasless style that WaKa is going for, it's really important to go for those it's a very common, I should say, to try and get some sort of walling up at your natural expansion. But this is the thing about Terraform. That natural expansion choke is insanely wide. It's actually really difficult to get the full evolution chamber plus queens plus roach warren wall off very easily, because not only do you have to spread a creep tumor to even get it started, you also have to just throw down more buildings than usual to actually get it finished off. So this is going to be a really interesting choice for WaKa to make on this map.
Yeah, it is definitely interesting choice. It's hard, even with 3 queens, to be able to wall that off, as you mentioned. Yes, you can go on the ramp coming up into your main, but it definitely is hard to defend early aggression. So I'm curious to see how WaKa is really going to deal with this, and he's going to need to somehow deal with it, because we're seeing 16 lings coming out of JimRising. Not aggressively yet, but there's still 16 lings coming out of the map. It's not 2 at a time lings, and you're just kind of, okay, I need some army, I need a little bit of defense. He's coming out, and he's planning to be aggressive, and that's exactly what he's doing, going down the middle attack path. And as I mentioned, one overlord of WaKa will spot it, but it's very easy if he went on the top path not to be spotted at all.
Oh, second spine crawler going down over here for WaKa, but I mean, these are just kind of emergency panic spine crawlers. Spine crawlers aren't the best unit to deal with a lot of these Zerglings, but the Zerglings over here from JimRising going after the Queens, looks like they really just want to break this ramp, but I almost kind of would have preferred to have seen them go after drones, go after the hatchery or something, because they're going to get pushed back now.
Yeah, a lot of the damage that he could have got done didn't really happen, and the transfuses saved all these queens here. I think maybe one queen died in that. Maybe not 100% sure, but still. Now the Lings, though, of JimRising do have speed.
Oh!
They're going to be able to get up into the main. And these queens are so slow off of creep. 2 banelings do go down in the natural base, but now these Lings are doing their hardest job, working so hard to try to get some kills. 2 banelings morphing it on the left-hand side. And while all this went down, by the way, there was an Overlord sniped by JimRising, which didn't actually supply block WaKa, but it forced him to put a decent amount of minerals into that, like that very early defense. He did not quite have what he wanted to.
Yeah, but I still think that WaKa did a great job with the defense so far. Oh,
9 kills.
Yeah, okay, that equalizes it quite a bit more, especially if you can get another Zergling run by. If JimRising can get more Zerglings into the main base, look at all these red health drones. Oh, that's going to be such a beautiful target for later on. But I still really do like WaKa's position a little bit better. I mean, you take a look at, like, Lair Tech is relatively similar. Roach Warren's coming down around the same time. The big difference is, before that Baneling hit, WaKa had a bit of a drone lead, but he also had a bit more of army. So that means that WaKa, again, you're going to see him just start to climb slightly ahead in the drone count. Not by a lot, but like 4 or 5 drones. And those small little advantages are going to add up.
Yeah, they will add up, but for now, WaKa has very little to defend. Yes, he's got these 2 spine crawlers, but if, like we saw in that previous engagement, JimRising simply walks around the defense, he can get into that juicy main. This is where you really want it to be Legacy of the Void, where you can just make overlords into transports, like just on a whim, and run into the main with like a baneling. But for now, JimRising, oh, he's a little bit scared. He does have 2 banelings, and we'll see what they engage with. Beautiful hits.
Beautiful hit over there. Cleans up all of WaKa's Zerglings, but WaKa not going to really be bothering to remake those. He's got the Roaches coming out, and I think also JimRising, it's nice that he now has this kind of contingency force of Zerglings that can go for counterattacks, scatter around for the third, etc. But for the most part, this game is going to transition to Roach versus Roach.
Yeah, we'll be transitioning to Roach versus Roach, and I'm curious to see JimRising. He took an earlier third because of how aggressive he was. He was able to really keep any aggression from WaKa back because of his aggression. Best defense, good offense. But I'm kind of curious now how that's going to pay off. That little bit of minerals may not go so well for him, but actually JimRising, again, will get into the main. And this is what we were talking about. If he can somehow get into the main again, he's going to be able to get lots of damage done, but already those drones have healed up, and a couple of kills will go off, but now there's 2 banelings on the left-hand side. I hope WaKa knows to scout for this again.
Oh, he's checking around. He does spot them just in time. And actually, those banelings may even finish up. No. Good reaction time over there from JimRising. Not going to waste that extra gas. Going to immediately cancel them and save a little bit of gas for another upgrade on another rainy day.
Yep, another rainy day. Too bad Terraform is a quite bright day, so we may not see that happen. But for now, we do see WaKa moving across the map, and he's actually got a decent amount of Roaches coming across the map. So far, WaKa is not actually up in the upgrade lead. Oh, there he is. He does have +1 now. So now both players are actually decently even, except for WaKa does not have link speed, which obviously is not a big deal, though, for him at the moment. But he's just trying to get up his third base economy. He's not actually spotted the third. Actually, no, he did spot the third base of JimRising. So yeah, right now he's trying to get up into a stable position. He's got more drones, but he does not want to just fall in a big Roach v Roach fight where he cannot quite produce as much as JimRising can.
Yeah, and we did end up seeing like a slightly earlier third expansion from JimRising. I'm kind of curious how you feel about this, Dranok. With like the earlier third expansion, neither of these players really going super gas heavy. In fact, I would actually say that I've been watching this for the past like 4 or 5 minutes. WaKa's really had 400 or 500 more gas than he's ever really known what to do with. Do you think that that's just because he went for that sort of earlier gasless style and he just has leftover gas now when he tried to take all those gas guys and end up having to defend, or what?
Well, I think one big thing with that is he took the gas during the aggression from JimRising, but then he was not really able to spend it. He was not able to get quite that wall up quickly. He needed to throw down spine crawlers, push out lings. So it may be that he just has a little bit too much to deal with, but I think it also, what factors into it a bit, is purely the aggression from JimRising did not allow him to invest in those bigger units, did not allow him to get the Roach Warren as he might have more quickly gotten if there was no aggression, because he had to put the minerals into lings, into more drones, and into spine crawlers.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But for now, we do end up seeing that WaKa is just going to continue with that roach production and just go for massive numbers of roaches that are just better roaches. They're going to have better upgrades, etc. But unfortunately, he's going to be up against Infestation Pit tech from JimRising. And JimRising's already moving across the map before his Infestation Pit is actually finished researching pathogen glands. So kind of interesting to see him trying to get this aggressive this early on.
Yeah, no, there is no infestors yet, so he is waiting for those pathogen glands to pop so he can have that instant fungal. But yeah, as you said, it's an interesting choice, and I'm curious how it's going to pan out against this, especially because actually the armies are now engaging. JimRising has a little bit better of a concave onto WaKa's, and WaKa will have to retreat, but onto his creep. And actually, WaKa has an incredible amount of creep now that I see it, but big battle going down. 2-0 to the 1-1 of WaKa.
Yeah, I think that the numbers from JimRising are going to be able to push WaKa back a little bit, but those reinforcements are coming in for WaKa a little bit quicker. I think that WaKa may be able to deal with this, especially with some nice transfuses that he seems to be throwing down every so often with that queen, and he is going to be able to push JimRising back. Again, a very strange decision to me, because if you've invested into this tech of infestors, and you're waiting for them to pop out, it seems weird or strange to me to kind of like try and take an engagement while you are going to be lacking roaches for those reinforcements, because that gas is invested in infestors.
Wow, this is actually a cool move, or second was a cool move by JimRising, but he's going to suicide into that third, and WaKa's desperately trying to catch him. There's so many ways to get there, but actually, in the natural, roaches attacking as quick as they can, running as fast as they can into this. Only a couple roaches are there to defend. 6 roaches and a queen. Queen's going to go down. Still another queen in the natural, and this will be pushed off, but the multi-pronged attack did get a lot of damage done right there. But I'd just like to say, I do completely agree. The infestors was a strange move not to wait for that investment that he waited so long, and now he's actually, JimRising's roach count has almost been reset.
Exactly. So he's going to be continue to do some of these counterattacks, and I think at this point this kind of makes sense to try and do, because you look at WaKa's supply, he's maxed out. WaKa is ready to go in for the kill right now, but JimRising needs to buy time. Buy time for him to be able to remax those roaches out with small little contingency forces like he's doing over here. Even if it doesn't do damage, most of the army, half of the army is on the back home defending, and that means that JimRising has a bit more time.
Yeah, that does mean JimRising has a bit more time, and maybe he's bought himself enough. He now has 3 infestors, each with a nice fungal. Ooh, one a little bit whiffed right there. Will catch 2 roaches, but now JimRising cannot engage into this choke point. There's just too many roaches coming on the other side, but he's actually starting to get somewhat flanked by this small contingency of roaches coming on the left-hand side, and this is looking so good for WaKa. It's all going to come down to these fungals.
Oh, WaKa engaging about 4 or 5 seconds too early. +2 to our Carapace does finish up just now, so that's going to help out a bit with these engagements. But oh god, it looks like WaKa is kind of uncertain about how to engage in over here. He loses a lot of his roaches down on the south side. He's moving roaches up along the top side. He wants to set up this kind of 3-way flanking attack, but he's sort of mistiming it. He's losing a lot of roaches in the process. He's fallen down in supply, and not only that, but he also is up against the infestors.
Yeah, he's got to be so careful for not one of these forces to get caught out alone. That is the thing. If you get a 360 surround, amazing. But if one unit, one small clump is not quite there, it's going to screw you a lot. And JimRising, though, I love how he's playing right now. He knows it's going to be very hard to push through this choke point. He's being very cautious. He's split up his army, and I mean, he knows that what WaKa is trying to do right here, but he has nothing at his 4th base. WaKa is moving into his 4th base. Drones will have to be pulled out of there. 2-3 kills, but now the armies I don't think is going to actually be able to split enough to be able to defend this 4th base if WaKa moves in while this all's going on.
Yep, JimRising sends some of his roaches down to the south side to try and defend that, but he leaves a majority of his army over at that natural expansion, over that defensive choke, as he has had them there for quite a while. He knows that this is kind of the typical plan, when you send a small contingency force to try and do some harassment, and you come in with the main force at another angle. JimRising is more or less prepared for it, but as you said, losing that 4th expansion, gonna be a little bit painful. I kind of feel like JimRising may be forced to just go for a big counterattack soon. Yeah,
I agree. He's given WaKa a lot of time on his side of the map, but actually WaKa is not quite... He's not done everything. He could have taken a 4th base with that. He's decided not to, and he decided to go for a lot of aggression. But as you mentioned, I mean, JimRising has kind of been stuck on his side of the map for a while. It has allowed WaKa to take a very nice map control. But for now, interestingly enough, JimRising, he's being very careful, getting rid of those rocks, and now he's going to move in, but this is hard to move into. I love that one first just to make sure he's not moving into a concave, but now a big concave will come out for WaKa, and now there's 4 infestors in the nice fungals, but not quite amazing as they need to be. A couple more fungals may come out, but now there's so many hydras right here for WaKa, almost 24, and is that enough to actually make this happen for WaKa?
The problem with the Hydros right now is that they are not only getting fungal growth right now down, but there's no more roaches to tank the damage for them. These roaches from JimRising are able to start powering through, but just barely with the reinforcements. WaKa is going to be able to defend, and oh, he might be able to get some free infestor kills over here.
Yeah, and those would be huge. Those infestors right there turn the battle a lot just because of the fungal growth slaughter Hydralisks, and he's trying to get as many as he can, but JimRising may be able to barely save one, and that's a little optimistic. Now, yeah, he will save one, but now Hydras are out on the map. JimRising has to be very careful because he's got Overlords scattered across the map like a good Zerg player, but he does not have any anti-air, so he's going to lose a lot of supply, and he knows this, pulling almost everything back into different positions.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where you're in the midst of a battle, you're trying to defend, and the last thing on your mind is, hey, my opponent's popped out with his Hydra, it's time to pull all my Overlords in, right? You're trying to micro the battle, trying to make sure that you don't just lose the game because you lost an enormous army engagement. And unfortunately, because of that, yeah, you probably will end up losing a little bit of supply over here, but he has his 4th expansion established, still before WaKa, and is actually already remaxed at this point with Hydras of his own. So even though JimRising's sitting a little bit further behind in the upgrades for now, very soon he's going to have +3 missile attacks, and he should be able to have a very, very deadly attack.
Yeah, and like you were saying, JimRising remaxed a lot quicker than WaKa, but if you look at WaKa, he's got 3,500 minerals in the bank, and he's just really hurting on his gas income, so he needs this 4th base's gas income, because he's got all the minerals he wants. Right now it is 2-2 to the 2-1 of JimRising, but if in just a couple seconds JimRising's going to be able to move in, it's going to be evened up, but finally now, JimRising has the Hydra and Infestor lead. This is I think this is going to go pretty well for JimRising, but if you look at WaKa's army, he's got the same composition, but just so much less.
Well, a very important thing about ZVZ are those army engagements and how the armies are positioned. That can actually make or break depending on, you know, whatever army you have. That's all well and good. If you get fungal growth or the choke, though, with all your Hydralisks, oh, that's not going to be a good day. So this is still a difficult situation for JimRising because he doesn't want to give WaKa too much time because WaKa's just going to start to remax. WaKa's also getting time to build up all these spine crawlers, and JimRising can't really find an angle to approach in that isn't a choke.
Yeah, I loved that right there as you were saying that WaKa actually contaminated one of the Evo chambers that was almost at 2-2 for JimRising. So he negated that one little attack going on. But now JimRising and both players are actually going to be moving out, but forced to kind of get into a different position. Both unknowingly are expanding towards each other. Actually, they know it. They got Overlords on top. And now JimRising knows he's expanding that way. He's got to be aggressive that way to defend that point. And WaKa knows he's got a couple seconds to be able to snipe it. So who can get there faster?
This is super awkward. Both these players are expanding so close to each other. And oh, JimRising looks like he's going to try and go from behind. And this is going to be a really interesting decision because if he does this, sure, he's trapping WaKa in, but I mean, he's leaving the entirety of his bases completely exposed. No, JimRising just going straight for the jugular. He's going to the 3rd, but his army's in a bit of a limbo line.
Yeah, for a little while right there, I felt like WaKa could take it a lot, but still right now, the only thing saving WaKa is this amazing 5-spine force, but all of them will be sniped. While this is going on, there are 3 roaches at that forward hatch of JimRising, but that's not going to be enough. Big engagements go down. Beautiful fungals all over, but no, I don't care about fungals when I have zombie Terrans, infested swarm eggs going down. The infested Terrans attempting to get down, but they just tank a lot of damage and don't get any damage done. 34 roaches coming out for JimRising to the 24 or 26 of WaKa, but that's GG.
JimRising going to be taking game number 1 in this best-of-5 show match series versus WaKa. And Janik, I want to say, like, those fungal growths were not only super important for JimRising in those last little moments because of the damage they did. It was the fact that he was catching so much of WaKa's army on the ramp and trapping it. That stopped so many more of the units from moving down that ramp to getting into a better concave to being able to get involved in that engagement. So really just, I think it was just a fascinating game in terms of positioning and the army movement during that last minute or two. I mean, that really actually had me pretty confused on like how things were gonna go because I just had no idea where the engagement was actually going to happen.
Yeah, for a little while, like you were saying, JimRising's army was in a tango line or Congo line. What am I saying right there? But his army was in parade style. It was all just going one by one. And for a couple seconds, I was like, oh man, WaKa, he's got an opening. He can hit it so hard and slaughter whatever he needs to do. But sadly, it did not quite happen. He was forced to go back to his third base. I would have loved to see him do that, but as you mentioned, it all came down to those army movements, and JimRising just got a slightly better movement right there and was able to take a fantastic actual engagement at the third base.
Yep, and now we're going to be moving into game number 2 pretty soon as we hop onto the European server. WaKa going to be feeling a little bit more comfortable, I think, over here. Although, I'm really happy to say, like, game number 1, I don't think that there were any huge, oh man, the reaction time from WaKa just wasn't there, and that might have to do with the fact that we're playing on North America and he's playing from Spain. Luckily, I think that we haven't really seen any of those sort of situations, so WaKa probably going to feel good about moving to game number 2, especially since, again, JimRising does have a reputation of being a bit more aggressive in the early game. We didn't quite see it as much. We saw a little bit of it in game number 1 with some of those speedling attacks, but WaKa did a fine job of holding that off. And now on his home turf, where he can actually have that reduced latency, he's probably going to be feeling much, much more confident.
Yeah, it's going to be on his home turf, and then it's also going to be an interesting map decision. For Game 2, it's going to be Bridgehead, which in ZVZ, all sorts of crazy things can happen. Your main and your natural, you got a pocket natural, it's on the same level as your main, and it rocks into it. Not only rocks, there are line of sight blockers around those rocks, so I'm really excited for the aggression that's going to come out of either of these players. I'd love to see that. I just got to point out, I'm just the gold scrub on EU. I'd much rather be unranked on EU, just so I don't look like this is my random account. I play random on EU, so you can I get all that hate.
There you go, man. There you go. Well, no worries, but moving on to Bridgehead. Ah, man, Bridgehead is such a strange and interesting map. It's also kind of unfortunate because I have seen so many people complain about this map. And
like
whenever it's like I really like it. But I see so many people complain about it, and they just outright strike it out during veto processes or on the ladder. I don't get to see it nearly as often. And I'm like, this is such an interesting map. There's so many cool features about this, and I love watching games on it, but I don't get to see enough of them. So I am really interested to find out kind of how ZVZ goes a bit more on this map, because those backdoor destructible rocks, talk about like the weird army positioning in the later stages of ZVZ with the roaches and everything. This is like a great map for that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think, in my opinion, this is the coolest map for ZVZ. Now, it is a pretty big map, not a 4v4 player map, but it is a big 2v2 map. And it reminds me a lot of Brood War simply because it's very open. There's a lot of possibilities for army positioning, which it comes down to a lot in ZVZ. You got 50 roaches v 50 roaches. How do you win? You get a nice concave, you get a surround, you get a little flanking maneuver. And it's really going to come down to this, which I love about Bridgehead. And I'd like to agree with you. It makes me sad when people veto this, just because the only one I have vetoed is Dash and Terminal, just because it's so you're so close.
I love that map, man. I love that map.
I have mixed feelings. Actually, I think I unvetoed it on EU, but when I see a new map like this, it's different. It's cool. I like it because it makes you think. You have to have map-specific build orders, and you have to think of how do I want to win on this map, not just what's my normal build order for every other map. So it provides a lot of cool things, which Dash and Terminal also does, but sometimes it just really annoys me on Dash and Terminal.
That's totally fair, man. I agree with you, though. Bridgehead does give me a very Brood War feel, but, man, we can talk about this in a little bit, because the game has started, and we're going to be hopping into game number 2.
Yep. Now, in the top left-hand corner of Bridgehead, well, really, I guess, the middle, both players in the middle, on the left-hand side of Bridgehead from Team Gravity, it is once again the blue Zerg player from Spain. Put your hands together for WaKa.
And his opponent spawning over on the right-hand side of the map, we have the red Zerg player representing Team Brawl Esports and currently up 1-0. It is JimRising.
And like I was saying, now that I look at it, it doesn't affect the game too much, but they're actually almost in the middle, both players. So it's kind of a little cool nuance of looking at this map differently than literally every other map.
Yeah, most other maps it's like, okay, you spawn on the top left and you spawn on the top right, or, it's always corners, man. I love the maps that are not corners. And actually, I would say that most maps that aren't in the corners, it's always like top center and bottom center. I don't see enough like left center
Dead in
and
the
right
middle.
center.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it might be cool just to have it like dead in the middle, both, or just have like one player spawning in the middle and then one player in like the top right.
Oh, that reminds
like,
me of you know that 4v4 map that has been in the ladder map pool for such a long time. I think it still might be there. It's like the volcano theme map, and there's like three. Actually, you know what? I think it was it's either it might be a 3v3 map, and it ends up being.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Two of the teammates will spawn like over in the corners. They have that safety wall, and then there's one player that just gets completely shafted. They end up smack dab in the center, like the middle line has a low ground that's facing their opponent. You're just like, oh my god, why did I have to be the one that spawned here? Why couldn't it have been Jim? Jim's the Bronze League player. I'm like the Masters League player who's gonna carry the team or something. Oh, that always ends up happening.
Wait, you're Chinese then? Is that what you're telling me? Wow, you're Jim.
I must be. You know what?
Yeah,
Jim, he's okay. We've covered this, all right? Jim is a Chinese, amazing, god level Protoss player, but on North America, he's apparently a like top NA GM Zerg. But let's be honest, when he plays Terran, he's like bronze level.
We'll be honest.
That's the way it is.
Yeah, but to be honest about the game currently, both players opening up relatively the same, but WaKa's speed is started quicker than JimRising, and okay, no, there it is. I was going to say, I'm almost curious if he's going to go for like a quick Roaches or something like that, even though it's a really strange build, but no, both players mirroring each other about the same, but JimRising, I'd almost say, is like a good 20 to 30 seconds ahead. WaKa is a good 20 to 30 seconds ahead than JimRising.
Yep, well, that early Baneling Nest, or I guess it's not a super duper early Baneling Nest, is going to be coming down for both these players. These are more like defensive Baneling Nests, I think, coming out from both of them. But, you know, I am really wondering, Jarnock, do you think that like the backdoor rocks will ever come into play early on? I mean, I feel like it's less likely just because of those super duper heavy armors on the rocks. But at the same time, these rocks at the back door, for those who don't know, if someone is attacking them from the backside, you cannot see the melee units attacking them unless you have high ground.
Yeah. No, it's what I was gonna say is I've seen so many ZVZs where that is exactly what's happened. Both players have gone for the back rocks, so I am very surprised that's not what happened this game. I'm also doubly surprised. Excuse me. I'm doubly surprised that JimRising only now is getting him an Overlord onto those back rocks. They obviously both these players know how long it takes to break them down, but I've seen some really crazy stuff from Zerg. But for now, what's crazy going on in the middle of the map is JimRising pushing out with 16 lings and only 2 defensive lings, 4 banelings at the top of this map. So JimRising is going to have to be very careful.
Yeah, no Wallens this time over here from WaKa. Going to be relying on that Zergling Baneling micro, and again, he's gonna. I know that like it's unfortunate to always bring this up, but latency does factor into these kind of Zergling Baneling micro fights, and WaKa is playing on his home turf, the European server, so probably going to feel a little bit more confident about any kind of micro going on over here.
Yeah, definitely. It will be a lot more confident, at least for WaKa, and we're going to see how JimRising deals with that. But for now, JimRising and both of them are going up to a quick layer, and I love what it's kind of, they're almost in unison, but it's not like they have a Overlord right on top of their opponent's base. Just, they know the build, they know exactly what they're doing, they know the standard, but I'd almost like to say here's the first deviation. Now, obviously, both players have 4 gas, but I'm not 100% sure if WaKa is going to go for Aspire because he went for his third base. But his opponent, JimRising, instead of that third base, decided to go Spire. And as I say that caster curse, they both deny that. But one thing for WaKa is he did take that early third base.
It's just a bit of a rearrangement. It's all good, man. It's that rearrangement that ends up happening from players. You know, they go for the same thing, but they go for it in slightly different order, as slight deviations. But we got Banelings coming in over here from both sides, and oh my God, JimRising abandons his Banelings to fend for themselves. He goes with the Zerglings, try and go for a counterattack slash, I guess, just get some information. He's gonna make it into the main base. He's gonna get a full scout on everything.
Yeah, JimRising actually could take out 2 Banelings for 1, but won't quite happen. Just leaves them, as you mentioned, and he's now in the natural base of WaKa, trying to get some damage done. Won't quite happen. There's so many lings out right now for WaKa, and I'd almost say he should not have done that, because he's forced out so many lings from WaKa at the moment. WaKa has 39 lings, almost 40, a couple banelings to a very little of JimRising. I don't think that was the best idea. Or, on the other hand, it was just the best defense is a great offense. Suicide your lings into the main and hope you can buy yourself a couple seconds because now he can get out a couple Mutalisks.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing about that is, one, he makes sure that WaKa's going to stay on his side of the map so he can safely get up this third expansion. I mean, you can see he's got his spine crawler ready to bro over there at that third expansion now that the creep is over there, but he buys himself time for the Mutals to get up, and now he also has information that his opponent's going for Mutals. He knows that he can I don't know about this decision from JimRising. Just like mathematically going for the +1 air weapons over Carapace is worse. I see a lot of players do this. And I have done a lot of extensive talking with like people like Jack Attack and a lot of testing. It is almost always better to go for Carapace over +1 flyer attack.
And to boot, a lot of what JimRising is doing, a lot of these just little counterattacks are with lings. So you want to be upgrading these counterattacked lings, and I mean, unless he plans on literally going mass Muto, which he could. But for now, I mean, as I was mentioning, he's planning a counterattack bottom left-hand corner. He's got a lot of lings out of the map, so I agree with you. I think that would be a better idea. But for now, JimRising is saying, you know what? I'm going to get so much damage done with these Mutos because maybe he knows they're both going Mutos. So he did spot, actually, the Mutos of WaKa, so that may be a little of a decision. You know, that's how I'm going to get my up. That's how I'm going to get my leg up in these little battles that are going to happen in the middle of the map.
Well, getting one leg up over there, JimRising does find a stray Mutalis and picks it off and manages to keep his Mutalis alive against this onslaught of WaKas, who I think are in relatively even numbers, but I mean, these Muto versus Muto wars are very much down to little bits of the actual numbers, but also it does come down to some of the Zergling counterattacks you can do. Try and keep your opponent on guard. JimRising coming in from the bottom left-hand side, but WaKa's already prepared for it.
Yeah, definitely. WaKa knew the one place he didn't have a lot of creep was up in that left-hand corner and already had some lings prepared. The Mutos will greet those lings with a nice little high five there into the face and slaughter a good amount of them. Now, the current Muta count is 18 to 20, so quite even, but JimRising actually does have +1 on these Mutas, so we're going to see how that's going to affect these engagements, especially if the lings and the Mutas engage on top of each other, purely because that +1 is going to slaughter lings really quickly with those glaives. Bouncing attack.
Yeah, it's definitely true that +1 can be nice for taking out Zerglings a little bit quicker and everything, but I mean, in the Muto, just straight up Muto versus Muto war, I think this is going to favor WaKa with the upgrades, but the numbers are going to be telling a maybe slightly different story. It's very close numbers over here from both of these players.
Yeah, it is incredibly close right now, but a couple of WaKa's Mutas are flanking, and that may be the turn of the tide in the battle. Right now, 11 Mutas for WaKa to the 5, or actually, GG. WaKa, there's literally 4 or 5 more Mutas. JimRising knew he would not be able to pull that back once he lost his Muta count and that got reset, but I'm not sure what his gas count was right there. I could look at that, but I think that he probably could not produce any more Mutas past that.
I mean, the thing about like the Muta versus Muta war is once you end up falling behind at 3 or 4 or even 5 at that point, it is really, really difficult to make a big comeback, because if you've been going Muta versus Muta, you haven't done the kind of transition out and start to move into infestors or something because the Muta counts are going really high. It's so difficult to ever find the opportunity to do that, because as soon as you try and transition out to something, you give up map control, you give up all of your overlords, your vision, your ability to put pressure on a 4th expansion, everything. You're just giving up immediately. So pretty difficult, but WaKa does a great job with that. And I want to say again, like, I think that the Carapace upgrade over the +1 flyer attack upgrade makes that big difference. I legitimately think that JimRising would have stood a much better shot in that engagement if he'd had +1 Carapace instead of Flyer.
Yeah, I think that is a very good point, Fear Dragon. And yeah, it's just, once you lose that, you can't do anything. That's why you see a lot of dancing back and forth between the Mutas, generally when neither player quite thinks they can take it. But right there, just very decisive. WaKa took it. He even had 3-4 Mutas come in on the flank, which is fantastic for the bouncing attack of the Mutas, and was able to take that. But that's game 2. It's currently 1-1. So this is, we got ourselves a ball game going right here, Fear Dragon.
Yep, tied up 1-1, but we're moving back to North America. JimRising going to be moving on to the map Cactus Valley, we believe.
Ooh.
And at Cactus Valley, one of those 4-player maps. I think our first 4-player map of the day, right? Because we had... wait, did we start on Moonlight Madness?
We start... No. We started off with Terraform.
Started off with Terraform and then moved on to, of course, to that last map. But yeah, first four-player map of the day. Might see slightly different openings. Maybe, I don't know. It's like that weird thing of like four-player maps. Because you have to scout out your opponent to put on aggression, you're less likely to see aggression. But because people are expecting aggression less, they'll play a bit more economical and they'll play a little bit more greedy. But because they play more greedy, you're more likely to see aggression. And it's like this looping around of like, they... Oh,
it's that one guy trying to be like, well, I think you're going to be aggressive. Well, I know you think I'm going to be aggressive, so I'm not. And the other guy's like, well, I knew that, so I'm actually going to be economical.
I know that you know that I know that you know.
It just goes back and forth forever. It's kind of crazy, but at least Cactus Valley is a map from the previous map pool. Funnily enough, I actually have Cactus Valley and the other four-player map vetoed just so I can experience the new maps, because literally when I went on to ladder, there was not a single new map. Everyone's like, nope, Cactus Valley and... What was the other four-player one? It wasn't... Oh, what was it? What's the other four-player one? Iron Fortress. Cactus Valley and Iron Fortress. Yeah. Just like the only maps anyone was playing was those two. And I'm like, are you serious, guys?
It's something funny. Like, I remember I can't remember who said this, but they were saying something like, I bet you that if Inferno Pools was still in the ladder map pool, as much as everyone complained about it, with the new season started, people would be like, oh, I'd rather play Inferno Pools than these new maps because I don't know maps. It's like the funniest thing. It's like, hey, if you give this a shot, probably by the end of the season, people will be like, oh, yeah, this is a really cool and interesting map. And screw the new maps that come out in the next ladder season. Like, I feel like that's just how things can go.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like I was saying, I like once you know the map, you can develop your own builds to it, your own strategies. But we are loading into Cactus Valley. Obviously, a map. It's been in the map pool a couple seasons and is a lovely four-player map. Wait. Okay. Wasn't sure if the little error from WaKa saying you should get out of the game, but not quite happening for now, guys. Loading in the top right-hand corner, we have the red Zerg player, just last game securing his first victory for tonight from Team Gravity. It is WaKa.
And his opponent... Spawning down the bottom left-hand corner of the map, we have, representing Team Brawl Esports, is the Teal Zerg player JimRising.
Is that a penguin?
Colors.
Is that a penguin?
That is part of... I mean, haven't you ever seen a Brawl, man? I think it's actually... That might be a toucan. I think it's a toucan.
I disabled my zooming in, so I can't tell you. So I'm relying all off you. Toucan confirmed. Thank you.
Yep, Toucan confirmed. Thank you, Hawkeye, our amazing observer.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna say, everybody, give a I don't know if give thanks, but whatever.
Give a warm welcome.
Give a warm welcome to Hawkeye, our lovely observer, and our streamer, just everything. He makes all this happen, and he's a fantastic person. But for now, actually looks like both players opening up relatively the same, except for WaKa. Well, actually, it's not relatively the same since WaKa's not going for gas. But
WaKa's also gone for a 10 pool, I believe. Spawn pool already finished up. I mean, you can see like the spawn pool finished up over here for WaKa already. JimRising is just now getting his started, but this is that mind game that we were talking about.
That's what I was going to say. This is the mind game where it's like, I know I'm going to do that, so I'm not going to do that. But I know you know that, so it's not going to happen. So pretty much you have normal games. It's just going to even out and do a normal game.
Yeah, and JimRising's doing the right thing. He spots out that his opponent is not in the top left-hand corner, so he sends his Zerglings to the cross spawn, and he sends a drone just to scout the bottom right, because he can always turn his Zerglings around to the bottom right. Well, actually, sending them to his own watch tower and having them stop there. Needs to send him over. There we go. Every second counts with these kinds of things. Luckily, I actually like these spawning positions the best, even though it's the longest distance for WaKa to travel. It means that the overlords are not going to be scouting this at all for JimRising for quite a bit of time.
I really like that drone movement he did right there because he could pull back into that bottom right-hand base. But for now, WaKa only has 5 lings to the relatively... It is actually 5 to 5, or 5 lings of WaKa in the main of JimRising. And now, WaKa's actually had to almost completely pull back. He does have a decent amount of lings, though, so he should be able to defend his natural base, which he's expanding to. But both players have to be careful. This could backfire easily. And this is the thing, as you're mentioning, on a 4-player map, as in just the time WaKa got to the main base of JimRising, he already had lings prepared.
It's actually really funny. I'm not 100% sure. I almost need to go back and watch the replay to verify this because I don't think JimRising had any vision of the fact that this aggression of the 10
He
pools
did
coming
not.
out from WaKa. But I think that JimRising was planning to go for a one base Ling Baneling all in. And he's ended up seeing all those early Zerglings like, oh, maybe I should throw down a Spinecrawler because maybe he is attacking me with like a 10 pool Baneling all in. But it ended up just being just 10 pool Zerglings, like slow Zerglings. And this is going to get really, really scary over here for WaKa, because it's like WaKa is invested into making all these Zerglings early on, so JimRising has a better economy, and now also has Banelings and Speed Zerglings to put on the aggression and just deny a natural expansion.
Yeah, these banelings have to be careful because of the spine crawlers. They too will focus down a baneling quickly. But yeah, as you were saying, now this has put JimRising in a nice position, and WaKa is not going to be able to take his natural base for a while JimRising did. And that was a really interesting turn of events, only because I did not expect that natural base to be canceled. But still, like we mentioned, this is going to contain WaKa for a while, especially with these banelings. He cannot rush out of this ramp by any means. It's kind of either the lings are at the top of the ramp and the banelings rush up, or kind of the opposite. Either one happens, you just do not have that vision, and you can really easily run into too many banelings and lose everything.
What is WaKa's plan? Because he is not grabbing gas geysers. He's just making more queens and zerglings. I mean, he's eventually, yeah, finally able to seize a little bit of control of his natural expansion and get a Spinecrawler bird over there. But is he really going to wait until he can get both of his Spinecrawlers burrowed in the natural expansion to try and take it? This is going to be such an enormous delay.
He is droning up. I think that's exactly what he's doing. And yeah, he's droning up. He's trying to get rid of these overlords, and he may try to make something happen. But now JimRising moving in with these two hero banelings. But oh wow, actually they was that a cancel? Or was that
no, it was not canceled. It was killed off, and that's the thing. Like those banelings, they were not made to, or they weren't meant over there to walk in over there and just, you know, try and get this enormous hit. Obviously, it'd be nice if they kill off a ton of Zerglings, but yeah, they're just there to zone out the Zerglings. Yeah, just like zone out the Zerglings, because those Zerglings cannot move between. Not only is there the choke of that ramp over there's also the choke of the spine crawlers and the queens, and made it really, really difficult for those Zerglings to actually move in and defend that natural expansion. So JimRising has a nice little drone lead, and I want to say, like, even though WaKa was droning behind all that, he was getting that up, his natural expansion is going to be really far delayed, and JimRising still has a lot more gas that's been mined. The gas guys haven't even been started over here for WaKa, so JimRising's just ahead in a lot of different ways right now.
Yeah. Yeah, WaKa is only behind 3 drones, but as you mentioned, JimRising is getting layer. He's got a baneling nest up. He's got speed. He's got a constant 3 drone income of the gas. So this is looking very scary for WaKa. In some situations, let's say WaKa had speed right now, he'd be able to do a little run by. Maybe make something happen with those quick units. You can get in, poke in, and get under the little chinks in the armor. But now he's unable to put on that aggression, and JimRising, let's see, JimRising did not scout fully into the main base, so he does not know the gas is there, but he's feeling incredibly confident to a cancel and a destroy, what is it called, not a destroy, cancel and killed the hatch, so he's feeling fine, confident. He goes for a quick third, and this is going to just go really well for JimRising. He does have to be careful, though, from WaKa to be able to push out a lot of units, but again, like I said, WaKa, even if he pushes out the units, he's not going to be able to surprise JimRising because it doesn't have speed, doesn't have gas, doesn't have the big tech units to be able to kill it.
Indeed, WaKa is trying to play a bit defensively over here. Doesn't have any idea about the third. Actually, if you take a look, WaKa's pretty in the dark right now as well. I mean, the furthest out Overlord is not even really that close to JimRising's base anymore. Having lost those Overlords earlier on to some of the Queens, etc., like, I'm really, really afraid for WaKa right now. Being behind on tech, being behind on economy, being behind in map vision and map control, WaKa's got to make some miracles happen.
Yeah, WaKa definitely does, and it looks like what he's going to do. I mean, he's just going up to layer. He's mimicking what JimRising is doing, just a minute, 2 minutes behind, and that's not going to get him back in the game. Now, here's the big deviation, what we're seeing, at least WaKa going Roaches versus the Mutas of JimRising. Now, 3-base Muta versus 2-base Roach, I feel like you just always win as the Muta, and WaKa knows it's going out for his third base, trying to defend it. But like you said, JimRising just has such a solid lead. He's gonna have probably, I don't know how many mutas, but he's gonna be able to pump out 8-9 mutas when there's literally only about 9 roaches out for WaKa.
Yeah, this is going to get pretty scary over here. JimRising spots out the third expansion attempt over here from WaKa. He may even just decide to right-click onto it. No, just going to keep WaKa's slow Zerglings running around in circles until the Banelings get over there. And then he can maybe put on a little bit more aggression. But WaKa's finally getting out those Roaches. Maybe he can make some nice defenses happen. If you can throw down some Spore Crawlers, you know, sometimes that's all you really need. You need some well-positioned Spore Crawlers, some good pickoffs on the Mutalisks, not allowing them to do the damage they need to, and you get up the Roach count you need to go for the big counterattack.
And right now, just to point out, the only upgrade we actually see out of JimRising, because he's put so much gas into the Spire and into these mutas, is Ling speed. Now, WaKa's going to have 1-1-1, or actually no, he's going to have +1 range, and then +1 armor, and then roach speed. So this is really going to help his small forces, the Lings, be able to survive against these mutas and maybe get some counterattack aggression off. But he's not going to be able to do that if he loses all his overlords.
Yeah, it's going to be a pretty frustrating thing. Roaches, it's something that people sometimes forget when you talk about ZVZ. The Roaches are so supply heavy, and losing those overlords does set you back, but oh my god, Beetle's just gunning it down on the queens. JimRising going up 2-1. That was, yeah, I mean, we were talking about the lead up to that, but I did not anticipate it going like that quickly. No. Like, oh, the Beatles are here. Oh, they're killing all the queens. Oh, okay, I guess the game's over.
And what's interesting about that is you mentioned a couple times WaKa had very little map control. Like, if you would have seen his opponent, JimRising, on 4 bases, it would have been even more like, ooh, can I make this happen? You're on 4 bases. You got, like, an economy almost going. But for a couple times when we mentioned JimRising's lead, I was like, oh, he may not be that ahead. Like, he's ahead, but I feel like WaKa could make something happen. And then it's just going to be like, what were you doing, casters? But it is currently 2-1. That's still even. It's still quite even. And a lot of these games have essentially what happens is one little engagement, one quick thing happened, and game over. It's been decided in just a couple seconds each game. Literally every game has been that. There's not been a single game where it's just like suicide into the main and boom, I win.
Yeah, you know, I would say that there have been like a lot of big advantages that have happened in, say, like the earlier portions of many of these games, except for maybe game number 1, but I feel like a lot of these games, like a small slash biggish thing would happen in the early game, and that would turn into something even bigger, or it would turn into one of those more. Exactly, it's one of those snowball effects that we end up seeing happening, and that game is probably one of the biggest examples of it. Of, you know, JimRising, I think, just kind of somewhat fortunately, build order wise, getting going for that 1 base all in, but like a slightly later 1 base all in. And it's like, it reminds me of the Brood War ZVZ, where it'd be like, okay, I'm going to get 8 drones and go for 1 or 2 base or 1 base Mutalisk. And my opponent is going to go for 7 drones. So like, you scout out your opponent's going for 7 drone Mutalisk play. So you're like, I'm going to go for 8 drones. And by the time, because of that like 1 extra drone, I'm going to be slightly ahead. And in like 20 minutes, that 1 drone's going to mine me enough minerals that I'm going to be ahead and win the game because I have 1 extra drone in my account. It's like one of those small things that just snowballs over time.
Yeah,
you get like that little lead. And same sort of thing happened where it's like, WaKa tried to go for the 10 pool, and JimRising was like, well, I'm going to do a 1 base all in, but it's a more economic one, so there. And then it just ends up working out, kind of.
Interesting thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, interesting thing we saw, though, that happened on the previous map is just both players actually opened up really aggressively. They both saw each other and like, whoa,
Yeah.
Okay, like, we're cool, guys. We're like, well, it's cool. We'll back up. We got this.
All right, well, I think you mentioned this earlier on Iron Fortress, the next 4-player map that we're going to be seeing. And, hey man, there's these funny things about that I know that I know that you know that you know that I know that somebody else knows that my best friend told me that this map is good
you
for
like
all
mutas. Oh yeah.
That you like mut, yeah.
I mean, it's something like that. It's like, that's what can throw you too, because you're like, he's gonna make mutas, Not only that, but you got a Zerg symbol in the middle. I mean, how much more ZVZ can you get?
Yeah, I'm trying to think of like, what was it, Habitation Station that had like the Ultralisk on the map also. Granted, those Ultralisks were like being dissected, but still.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
like that's like the only thing I can think to make this map more Zergy.
Yeah, but for now, on Iron Fortress. These two lovely players, and a half of those two lovely players in the top left-hand corner. In the blue trunks from Brawl Esports, currently up a game, it is the one, the only, JimRising. There's like one other guy out there who's, oh, wait, I'm JimRising too. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
And spun down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Zerg player representing Team Gravity, the European division. It is WaKa.
And man, I just keep thinking of Pac-Man.
I keep thinking about JimRising's name, and I've been thinking about this for a while, and I keep thinking of the Team Liquid Rising esports documentary that was made, and now I'm thinking like, if JimRising has an alt account, it should be Jim Falling.
Jim Falling.
Like it's like Evil Geniuses Falling, Team Liquid Rising.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of random. If I ever had a Smurf, it would be Dr. Enoch. Because it would work instead of Drenok. I felt so proud of the day that I realized that.
Oh man. That's actually pretty clever, man. You should make that alt account.
Yeah, but I have to be good enough that I can actually Smurf someone first. My diamond level league is just too scrubby for anyone I could properly Smurf.
Fair enough. Well, it looks like this game so far we have pretty safe and standard openings from both these players, and oh my god, Drenok, we're finally seeing, I think for the first time in the series, WaKa actually go for his gas geyser relatively early on. I think he's finally done on this map, the map that has probably one of the widest feeling natural expansions. He finally says, okay, I don't want to go gasless on this map, and I think I like that decision. As much as I've enjoyed his good micro, he's actually had pretty solid defense versus the early speed attacks that JimRising's been throwing out. And he looks like he's going to actually throw out again with a 6 Zerglings already. It's actually a fairly decent number of Zerglings. WaKa is going to have to put up a nice little defense over here, but this time he will have an eventual speed.
And what's really interesting about this is the flip opposite of each game. JimRising has gone gasless, completely gasless. So he's going to be able to put on a little bit of aggression, but this is kind of the thing where it's that whole mind game. Maybe you're greedy, I can punish it, maybe not. It's not too much of a commitment for me to push out 6 lings and see what I can get done. But now there is 4 lings in the natural base and a queen very soon. Once that queens get out, WaKa should be completely fine. A little bit of a dance here. Now speed has started, and there's still no gas at all for JimRising.
Oh, that queen gets surrounded over here for WaKa, and JimRising gets a nice pick off over there. Only loses 3 of his Zerglings. Going to be able to make it out of there with the remaining 3 and regenerate some of that health. A really, really nice little win over there for JimRising.
I mean, those little pickoffs make you feel so confident. Like with 3-4 kills on a Reaper, you're just like, yeah, I'm good, and that's really big. That is huge, actually. The second queen is started. There is one queen in the main, which should be able to kill these last few, but the speed actually is almost going to be done. So WaKa should, I say should because before he was technically not fine, but he should be fine now, and he's going to be able to start his injects. But I don't think that's going to affect the game too much. One, maybe 2 injects, the 1 on 50 minerals, not too big, but it's still, that's interesting. JimRising has taken 2 gas now in his main, and looks like he's going to probably do, I'm guessing just roaches.
Yeah, so what I will say is killing off that queen, especially since he knows that, of course, JimRising knows that he went for a gasless style, but then he scouted out that WaKa had gone for a gas geyser, and killing off that queen meant that that one missing inject would mean that there's no longer that like high opportunity for WaKa to go for a big speedling all-in now, especially on a map like Iron Fortress, which again has a really, really wide open natural expansion choke. So JimRising, I think that because of that, he can play a little bit more greedy, and he's going to be able to, do things like just drone up a little bit more because he knows that extra wave of speedlings are much less likely to come from some kind of all-in because he did delay that that inject.
Yeah, and not only that, he does have 3 queens at his natural base. So even if there is some aggression, he's got enough queens to get a couple transfuses off and to be able to hold a wall if he needs to. And now you see WaKa. WaKa is not really sure. Yes, he knows JimRising went gasless, but honestly knows very little about what's going on right now. Scouting out, is there a quick third base? What is there? And the nice thing is, though, JimRising, obviously the funny thing in ZVZ is that yes, you have to make a wall, but that just allows your opponent to scout you a little bit more easy. And WaKa does confirm, okay, Roach Warren. Now, what is he going to do with this?
Yeah, he's got a lot of Zerglings on the way, and this is pretty typical for a player that goes to the Mutalists. You start doing things like throwing down Spinecrawlers at your front, because you want to make sure you don't just die to a big Roach counterattack, but then you also get out Zerglings to just make it difficult for your opponent to move across the map. JimRising has a fair number of his own Zerglings out, and they do finally have speed. He didn't forego that after having gone for the Castle's opening, but it's really going to be a matter of JimRising trying to just buy time and, keep WaKa at home with his Mutals, trying to defend against his own Zergling counterattacks long enough for him to get up his own Spore Crawlers and even just get the Crease Spray to take a third.
Yeah, and just to note, by the way, the couple spine crawlers in JimRising's base and that Evo Chambers actually put him back 7 drones at the moment. So WaKa is ahead a little bit by 7 drones. He's got a decent gas bank, and now mutas are done. We'll see if he starts mutas, but now the dance of the lings are going on, and there's just a couple banelings for WaKa. JimRising has to be so careful. He will engage with these lings, but it's still, I love these fights right here where you engage, you run, you engage, you run. Very fast-paced. And one nice thing for WaKa is he's been able to push these lings out of his side of the map. So these 8 mutas are going to go undetected, at least in the beginning.
I mean, but oh, okay, that's not where you want your Zerglings to go. Oh my god. JimRising losing a lot of Zerglings over there. I was going to say it was a great thing that JimRising with this aggression had forced out so many Banelings, because that meant a lot fewer Mutalists. But, I mean, the Banelings have kind of paid for themselves now with how many Zerglings they just killed up. JimRising is in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, JimRising is in a lot of trouble. He's even going for a third base, which he has no way to hold on to. Queens are nowhere near it. He does not have a creep there. And if these lings don't do it, the mutas will. And GG, like I said, split-second decisions, and not even split-second decisions, just you see something, you know you can't win.
Yeah. Oh, man, okay. Well, Drenok, we've talked about how games have been going, and there seems to be certain situations where player will just, one thing will happen and it'll sort of spiral out of control. That was like one thing happened, and then just the floor drops underneath JimRising. Like, he mismicros his Zerglings just a little bit, and all of them are suddenly gone, and now he suddenly is just like, does not stand a chance against that aggression. A little bit unfortunate over there for JimRising to lose that way.
Yeah, it was very unfortunate, but it has evened up the score to 2-2. Now, guys, this is a best 5, so this is the decider match right here. Or, sorry, the decider game. And like all these games, as we kind of said, they've been really strange. They haven't come down to one key decision, but they've came down to, oh crap, you have mutas. Oh, GG. And I mean, it's kind of like, oh, yeah, not even going to deal with it.
Yeah, Team Gravity Fight Night has a bit of a curse for those who don't know. The curse it's actually a pretty good curse, but we either have really, really long series that go to game number 5, or we have insanely close games that end up being, score-wise, it'll look one-sided, but the games are insanely close. And of course, sometimes we do get the merging of the two, where it's like a really long series and the games are really, really close. But we never just have kind of like a one-way all-kill, just super clear-cut games 3-0 or stuff like that. We always have some form of the series being pretty close. It's a good curse to have.
You know what's kind of funny with that is that after casting last week with Trigonal, I realized that you are correct. We just had a whole bunch of long games. Like, what are you guys doing? Just end the game. You don't need to do this. But this last game is going to be on the I'm trying to find the proper word in my head. It's on the dreaded Dash-and terminal. And by the way, it should be Dash-und, like Dash Hound, not Dash-and. It's just where did this naming convention come from?
I mean, I've always been a fan of the ampersand for ands, just because it's shorter, it's a little bit more concise, especially when you have a name as long as Dash and Terminal. That's a lot of characters, man. And then you add in the LE and it's version 1.0 and all this other crazy stuff, man. Just abbreviate that and.
What were you thinking? Dash and Terminal. What are these two? It sounds like two dogs. Hey, Terminal. Hey, Dash, get over here. Or two little kids in the country, man. I don't know.
Maybe the map creator did name them after the dogs, man. What's wrong with naming the map after your dogs?
I'm completely fine with that. I'm just I want to know the reason why it's called Dash and Terminal. Just Dash Terminal. It's why is the and there? If it was You know what I mean? It's kind of I get
Maybe
if they're
it's like a
adjectives of each
computer
other, but
terminal. Maybe it's like a computer
oh.
terminal, and it's like the dash, like the forwards, like the
Wait, let me look at it.
computer
Does
dash.
this maybe computer terminal? I don't know. It is a very cool map though, and like every game I play Zergon, the Terran floats to one of the golds or takes the island, and like I know it's there, but I'm like, oh, I'm sure it's there, and then I'm like, doesn't go well.
Oh. Yeah, this is one of those maps that a lot of players do not like. Just straight up, gonna put that out there. I, in particular, am a huge fan of this map because I like playing Protoss versus Terran. And I like sending my Mothership Core across the map for people who don't know that they can't open Reaper on this map in Protoss versus, or Terran versus Protoss
Yeah.
because they don't have enough anti-air defenses from a Mothership Core and they just straight up lose the game because of a Mothership Core. That's a pretty good feeling for me. But things about this map is that the air distance is really, really short. Think kind of slightly longer than Scrap Station if you've been playing since Wings of Liberty. And it's a little bit
Scrubs all
longer
of
than
them.
that. Exactly. It's a little bit longer than that, but there's that roundabout ground path that takes a while to move around and kind of that U shape, but then very close air distances. So that means that there's going to be a lot of vision available on this map for both of these players.
Yeah, a little bit like Inferno Pools. Just the way that both mains are very close to each other airspace wise, but we'll be loading into Dash and Terminal. Someday we will figure out what was going on in the creator's head. But without any further ado, here we are. In the top mid spawn position. Now, here's some really wonky spawn positions, Fear Dragon, if you want to say where they are on the map. But in the top middle spawn position, from Brawley Sports, it is the red Zerg player, JimRising. That was intense. I don't know what happened to our observer.
And his opponent spawning over in the 3 o'clock position is the blue Zerg player. Representing Team Gravity has been able to tie up this series 2-2. Can he close it out? It is WaKa.
And the winner of this gets $10 and just that prestigious, like, yeah, I want a show match today. You go out and spend your $10 on like McDonald's. Probably the only thing you can get with that, but you feel good.
Yeah, man. And I mean, not only is $10 awesome, $10 can buy you approximately 9 tacos and still have some change left over for a gumball. But on top of that, I mean, 9 tacos is a lot. I don't know about you, man, but I get weird looks when I get like 5 tacos whenever I go to any kind of Mexican restaurants.
I just remember us at Chipotle. That was Tempo. Never mind. That was Tempo who just got a burrito filled with cheese.
Oh my god, that sounds fantastic. But
it was strange.
Kind of interesting over here from JimRising. It's something I haven't really seen much of. It's a very odd pool timing. It was a 13 pool. And that is very odd to me because normally you try and think, okay, what is a 13 pool made to accomplish? Well, could you have accomplished that earlier aggression with a 10 pool? Usually the answer would be like, okay, yeah, if you're going to go for an early pool, just go for like a 10 pool or something. If you're going to try and play in a more economic opening, then go for like a 15 pool. So this almost sort of feels to me like a 13 pool. I hope that I wish that we had like a GM level Zerg player like JimRising or WaKa here to like on the cast to let me know if this is true. But it almost kind of feels like he's anticipating an early pool or trying to play extra safe versus an early pool from his opponent.
Yeah. It's like he knows he wants to go economic, but he does not want to defend with a good offense. He simply says, I want to be safe. And one thing I've always wished there was in esports is not having analysis afterwards, but have 2 casters and then just like 2 GM guys, and they don't cast. It's simply when they're sitting there and like when Fear Dragon is like, so what does a GM Zerg think of this?
Analysis desk.
Yeah, but just like sitting with them. So what's the GM Zerg think of this? They can just be like, well, it's blah blah blah. It's because of this and this and this, and then they're like, cool, and then you keep going. And so you still have your analytical guy, but then you have the guy you ask the questions to. But sadly, we don't have that for now. We just have the quite amazing Fear Dragon who is a very fun dude and myself. But for now, both players, even though there was that deviation early on, as you mentioned, 13 pool, are pretty much doing the same thing.
Yeah, for the most part, everything's going to even up. Again, it's like for the most part, but we still see little remnants of that kind of opening and going for that earlier pool, having to cut drones a little bit earlier on. JimRising just like slightly behind, just very, very slightly behind in things like the drone count. But Did also grab an earlier gas geyser, gets to start up Zergling speed a little bit earlier on. But let's talk a bit about this map some more, Draenok, because there's some other interesting features about this map that we haven't really talked about. Was our amazing observer Hawkeye is kind of pointing out different features of like the fourth expansion, Zone Log of Watchtowers. But I actually want to focus some attention over on that gold expansion, because those gold expansions are very, very strange. Draenok, I see the gold expansions get taken in Protoss versus Zerg. I see them get taken in ZVT. See them get taken occasionally in PvP. I have not seen them really taken very often in ZVZ, and I wanna consult with you, man. Have you been seeing the same thing?
I have been seeing the same thing. I haven't thought about it that much, but the thing that just appears to me off the top of my head is you'd normally want to take that gold base as a quick one. Either as Terran, you lift up a CC, you go to there, you get you get a quick income buzz. And that works great, but as a Zerg, you can't quite take it. It's too far away from your main. You're not able to really secure it. And I mean that'd be terrible if we saw WaKa do that, because JimRising is coming across the map with a lot of lings here. And there's gonna be a couple of banelings ready for him, but how is he gonna deal with this? 26 lings to the 16 of WaKa.
Oh, this is a very weird decision over here from JimRising. He's gonna lose a couple of these banelings that were morphing in, but he abuses the fact that there are multiple entrances, makes it all the way into the main base, but he's gonna be able to kill off a queen, and he might be able to do some nice damage over here, but he is trapping a lot of his Zergons over here. He has to make some nice damage happen.
Yeah, you say abuse like it's a bad thing. I love this map, because you're like, haha, you didn't prepare. But, more lings are
heading
heading
across
across
the map. Gonna be able to get another queen. Oh man, he's killed off both of WaKa's queens, and WaKa is only just now starting up one of those other queens. And JimRising has lost a lot of his own Zerglings, but if he can just defend that first wave of aggression, the second wave from WaKa is going to be significantly weaker with no larva injects coming out.
Yeah, it will be significantly weaker, and as that happened, JimRising had 26 lings coming out, a couple banelings, beautiful hits. Will sacrifice some of his own units, I guess, there. But now, JimRising has taken a fantastic lead. He's pushing across the map, and WaKa knows this. He's saying, you know what? I'm going to go up to layer, but he's only on one gas. So we're going to see how this is going to work out for him. He's going to have some fantastic baneling hits, which could go down because banelings are chasing banelings. This is a very dangerous game of tag.
Oh man, that extra queen. Oh, I love this decision over here from JimRising. Takes out a couple of his Zergons, segments off some more to kill off that queen once again. No more larva injects for you for quite a bit of time. Loses some of those Zerglings, but I mean, he's just doing such a good job of killing off drones, killing off random queens, killing off everything, just halting WaKa in anything he wants to do. Now, there is a bit of a fear, though, and JimRising is going to be committing too hard to this. He's losing a lot of Zerglings, and it's possible that he just ends up losing to a big counterattack. The problem is, and the reason why I think it won't necessarily be that easy for WaKa, is, again, larva injects. Look at that money, Draenok. Look at those minerals build up. 600 minerals. He doesn't know what to do with those. He doesn't have any larvae to actually spend it on.
Yeah, and you can even see across the map, I mean, JimRising, he's able to pump out so many units. And not only that, just by the way, like you were saying, a little bit weird for JimRising, he only killed 5 drones, but at the same time, I still feel like he's got a very nice lead here. The banelings of WaKa, just going around the banelings of JimRising. This is going to come down to some clutch micro, but only now the queens have gotten out. That's only one, actually, sorry, both queens are out, but still, this is going so well for JimRising. A lot of the lings of WaKa were slaughtered, and now JimRising moving in the main. And this is this is it.
Yeah, some of those drones still softened up in the main base, but it looks like the Zergling is going to be more softened up than anything else. And WaKa does manage to defend that bit of aggression fairly well. He kills off a lot of JimRising's banelings. JimRising is investing a lot to the gas into those banelings, and WaKa's finally got those queens back up. He's finally getting those larva injects up. His spire is finishing up. And JimRising, even though he's taking a third expansion and continuing this aggression, ooh, gotta be very, very careful. And this is where I think JimRising is gonna be able to do some nice damage.
Yeah, this is JimRising needs to get just a little bit more damage done. He's killed 7 workers, now 11, and just he's really also screwing up purely the injects, the economy, as you were mentioning. It's both of them are at a decent economy, but they're just screwing up each other, and WaKa is not able to really play it the way he wants to, and is able to play as cleanly as he wants to. But now 32 more lings coming out for JimRising. 13 workers killed. It is currently 34 for JimRising to 22 of WaKa. and I think there's not even one queen out right now for WaKa. So like
Oh.
maybe the mutas can make some happen. Three mutas. I mean, three mutas are enough time to get up just a couple spore crawlers if they're in your main.
Yeah, the three Mutals will not really do too much, especially if there are just even two queens available for JimRising. And the problem is, again, that larva, even if he has the gas, and WaKa has spent most of his gas now on either the Mutals or the Banelings, he just doesn't have the larva to make both Zerglings and Banelings, and also have the Mutals out in high enough numbers to put on any kind of counter harassment.
GG. JimRising barely making it out of that series 3-2. Brawl Esports is going to be heading home with $10. Sadly, the Team Gravity guy didn't quite do it, but man, those were really quick, very back and forth, and very close games.
Yeah, that was a really cool series. And the thing, especially what I like about that last game was, first of all, I kept talking about how JimRising loves to be aggressive, and even though we've seen little bits of it, that was like the true JimRising aggression, right? Like just pure, straight up Speedling, Baneling aggression off of the 13 pool. But what I really liked about that was just the way, the strategery behind JimRising's victory there in halting those larva injects, making it so difficult for WaKa to choose between how to actually spend that money. And I almost kind of wonder, like, maybe there are some things that WaKa could have done, like, you know, when you're building up to like 700, 800 minerals off of that, like, barely 2-base economy, starts throwing down some spine crawlers or something. But even then, that's like a hard decision, right? Because spine crawler is
it's a drone.
A drone,
and it's a decent
exactly.
amount of minerals.
Exactly. It's like it's quite a bit of an investment for a Zerg player to have to try and make that decision. So, at the end of the day, can't really fault WaKa too much. That was a pretty difficult situation to be put in, but JimRising, man, I love that kind of constant sniping of the queens. It was like a very intentional decision to do that over going after drones, over going for those main army engagements.
Yeah, exactly. And you also got to think of, as I was kind of trying to mention, that not only maybe WaKa gets out alive, but that's a very stressful situation to be in. You're like, oh man, inject. Okay, got to get Lings out, and maybe like you're gonna be able to keep getting your queens out. And these are definitely both very good players, but it's still that's a stressful. You got to be thinking a lot. And for JimRising right there, it's just send some Lings over, target down a queen. Send some Lings over, target down a queen, and it's not quite as intense on him.
Yeah, exactly. But with that being said, as we mentioned before, JimRising going to be advancing out of there. And by advancing out, I mean advancing on to the prize money of those $10 in the first show match of the day. Ladies and gentlemen, don't go anywhere because we got plenty more stuff, StarCraft, coming at you guys, including the next match, which I believe is going to be Mamuri versus Mooskills, another ZVZ. So if that ZVZ wasn't enough for you, we got more ZVZ coming up, followed up by the amazing Terran versus Protoss. That's going to be Liquid Tasia versus Liquid Hero. That's going to be fantastic. But Drenok, before we go ahead and head to a break, do you want to just give one additional shout out to some of the sponsors and tell people kind of a little bit about Hitbox?
Oh, well, guys, Hitbox is, I don't know if I want to say it's a new streaming service. Not 100% sure how long it's been around, Fear Dragon, but Hitbox is a fantastic streaming service. You can do a lot of really cool things with it. It's got a very clean chat system, which I like. And you also, there's voting in the chat systems. You don't have to link out to Straw Poll or something like that. There's voting, or not voting, I guess, there's polls. And then as Fear Dragon mentioned before, just in any of these matches went down, you can post GIFs, which is like the coolest thing ever. Who does not want to post that? And it's just really cool. Lots of cool things. Please, guys, follow us on Hitbox and then go make an account on Hitbox because it's just going to get bigger and bigger and lots of people are going to be enjoying it. If you have an account, you can join in on the conversation. I know Fear Dragon and I are both in that chat, just sitting there hovering, staring, and lurking, of course. But still, guys, please go over and support Hitbox. Make an account, and that means a lot to them, a lot to us. And then just a quick shout out to Spawning Tools. All the replays from Team Gravity Fight Nights go on to Spawning Tools or Spawning Tools. Am I butchering that?
Yeah, Spawning Tool. It is at Spawning Tool on Twitter, and if you just Google Spawning Tool, you'll be able to find it. But yeah, Spawning Tool is a great tool, and of course, they're going to have all the kinds of information about all the matches that are played today. So if you guys want to find out more about, the players and the replays that get generated when the players play in all of today's matches, then go ahead and check out Spine Tool. They have a bunch of the previous Team Gravity Fight Night replays up on there if you guys want to check
Mhm.
that out as well. But one final shout out goes to G2A, who I believe we have
Yeah.
a really, really awesome deal with, where if you subscribe to the Team Gravity Fight Night Hitbox channel, which is $5, you get a $5 coupon or gift card from G2A. It's actually, you might think it's a purchase or that you're sending money or you're losing money, but really if you
You're
were
not.
going to buy a game anyways, you are just getting those $5 back immediately. It's a great thing that you can do.
It's amazing. You support your favorite team, obviously, Team Gravity, and then you get a free game, or not necessarily a free game, but you get a game out of it. So in just about any game on there, not just about any game is under $5, but there's a lot of games on g2a.com. So please head over there and subscribe to us if you can. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're gonna be back in just a little while with Moose Skills versus Mammary. My co-caster, Fear Dragon, and I am Duranok.